Tuesday, May 8, 2012. Truth that dared to speak its name. On the 16th of February 2012, in the House of Lords, one courageous man, akin to Churchill, attempting alone to warn of the Nazis' threat to peace, Lord James of Blackheath, showed the vision, integrity, and fortitude to stand up, be counted, and expose to the House of Lords the stark evidence of global fraud, which, he so eloquently stated, there may have been a massive piece of money laundering committed by a major government who should know better.
I think there may have been a massive piece of money laundering committed by a major government which ought to know better.
Also, in his words, a major American department has an agency which has gone rogue.
The second alternative is that a major American department has an agency which has gone rogue on it because...
This is a scam of major size and a key to the recovery of the money needed to immediately boost America's economy, stabilize the EU, and fund the global settlements. Lord David James of Blackheath invited the House of Lords to assess the implications of his concerns and requested a full inquiry. While MI6 played around the edges, focused Treasury minds has still not commenced with the thorough investigation needed, nor has the UK Treasury or Foreign Office stood up and sought to establish the truth. Lord Sassoon missed the whole point by passing it off with a presumption that if the gold claimed was bogus, it was just a scam from Wilfredo Sorin. He purposely overlooked the real issue. Money raised against gold that does not exist is fraudulent. Sassoon should know that grandstanding can make or break careers. The consequences of what noble Lord James was seeking to expose are far-reaching. He was offering a key to the Pandora's box of the uncontrolled cabal and corrupt U.S. agency with activities carried out not in the interest of sovereign protection, but for the usurping interests of corrupt banking, political, and agency greed. The extent of the fraud may be too great for state agency staff to understand, as Sassoon has shown by failing to look into it. So, perhaps someone needs to help them all understand our real dangers and risks. This may help a significant group of international leaders and governments to finally grasp what has been and still is happening. What follows will expand consciousness of this very nasty reality, to focus on the key issues and to assist prosecution. The agency Lord James previously raised concerns about in the House of Lords, which he prudently referred to as Foundation X, is, in fact, the Pure Heart investment operation run by General Lauren William Rossier and assisted by dubious Chief Attorney Marlon McCall. This agency is claimed by McCall to be a subsidiary of Homeland Security, a fact supported by the UN and Homeland codes interjected into their SWIFT transfers for the identified 15 trillion USD raised by fraud, with no congressional awareness, oversight, or permission. Why is the U.S. Congress not getting this? 15 trillion USD was heisted on your watch, Congressman Issa. Where is our Standards Committee now? Lord James had originally been approached by Marlon McCall, in turn linked with Sandip Goyal and the notorious Asian conman Wilfredo Sorin, with dual intent. On one hand, they were seeking to offer a too-good-to-be-true £6 billion loan to Her Majesty's government, which they had on deposit at HSBC. They also sought Lord James' assistance to get HSBC and others to acknowledge the 15 trillion USD, which had been wired previously by J.P. Morgan on behalf of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York via HSBC, for further credit to the Royal Bank of Scotland for the Pure Heart account, now sequestrated by rogue RBS bankers. Poetic justice prevails as scammers got scammed by the bankers. The LWR got SA, and Pure Heart Investments appears to be a vehicle operated in conjunction with the U.S. Fed, Treasury, and selective U.S. agencies, with even UN complicity as shown by the attached SWIFTs. All these entities were cross-compromised by McCall, having spent 8 weeks in the hospital, preventing the agency from playing its full role in the U.S. debt ceiling crisis in August of 2011, where the 15 trillion USD debt shortfall was miraculously solved out of thin air utilizing this fraudulent operation. PureHeart is an unregulated and covert operation of the U.S. government with possible links to the Revenue Sustainability Fund, RSF, which funds should have been utilized by the Fed, Treasury, to prepare the way for the imminent global settlements, which continued to be blocked by the self-interest of the Rothschilds, the Bushes, and the Heritage Funds. These funds, once released, would help prepare the way for the critical and necessary realignment of all major global trading currencies, but most importantly, the consolidation of substantial sovereign debts owed. The world's biggest problem is lack of economic stability, which we can begin to solve by taking this money and paying the settlements. In some areas, the RSF has been using PureHeart for several years as a means of clandestinely distributing large volumes of dollars into sovereign economies as a means of maintaining the image of stability. However, this has been a double-edged sword, which will be addressed later. What took place was, in effect, a massive money laundering scheme. The U.S. Treasury had run dry, so they defrauded the global monetary system by illegally creating additional money, which was subsequently stolen. We need to demand this money back and pay the global settlements. There is enough incriminating evidence to hold them all accountable. The scale of collusion defies belief, yet it happened, and it still continues to happen. Congress and the House of Lords need to establish a joint task force to immediately recover this money and in one swift action rebalance the world's economies. PureHeart functions with no direct oversight and with investigating parties being told hands off by key central banks, the Treasury, and by major intel agencies. In an operation created by PureHeart utilizing the notorious Wilfredo Sorin, the well-known international fraudster, a scam was set up to wire a total of 15 trillion USD in 3 separate tranches of $5 trillion SWIFT transfers from the Federal Reserve to the account of LWR, GOTSA, PureHeart Investment to HSBC London for further credit to Royal Bank of Scotland Global plc. The attached SWIFT transfers and confirmations reveal the smoking gun, including the SWIFT regarding the bogus gold. This was a very sophisticated cross-agency and bank criminal operation known and colluded to at the highest level. All the money can be traced. On the 20th of April 2009, the first tranche of $5 trillion was wired using USD SWIFT transfer number 400930153. The onward transfer from RBS to RBS Group used SWIFT transfer number 816-370-8748 with confirmatory tracking and onward SEQUE 851962 at 4:53 p.m. On the 27th of April 2009, the second tranche of $5 trillion was made USD SWIFT transfer number 43199011756. Confirmatory tracking SEQUE 924573 at 1:28 p.m. On the 4th day of May 2009, the third tranche of $5 trillion USD SWIFT transfer number 11863082258, confirmatory tracking and onward SEQUE 259043 at 2:14 p.m. On the 11th of May 2009, a 50 billion euro transfer was made by SWIFT transfer number 40271055584. Confirmatory tracking and transfer SEQUE 275903 at 2:25 p.m. This was later to be pursued for release from HSBC by no other than the Fed chairman himself coming out of the woodwork. April 20, 2009. Now an interesting scenario occurred when they transferred this created money where asset backing was needed to balance the books. They realized they had a serious compliance shortfall problem backing up the history of funds. They needed to cook the books fast to give a credible asset to justify raising the cash. So on the 20th of May 2009, operating in conjunction with Wilfredo Sorin, they wired SKR's safekeeping receipts from the Bank of Indonesia, BI, for an alleged gold bullion transfer of 750,000 metric tons. It was, of course, bogus and fraudulent. Attached is the issued SWIFT number, transfer number 20200754365, Confirmatory tracking and transfer SEQUE 194743 was also issued at 10:21 a.m. You will discover, coincidentally, from the BI SWIFTs, the sum amounts to the 15 trillion USD needed to underpin the US Fed fraud. This was all predicated by Sorin against the backup account of Johannes Riadi, which only holds 7 whole metric tons of gold and can never be moved. We have and hold copies of the real Bank of Indonesia custodial records and full Deputy President confirmation of Riadi's account on a special Fed Bank of Indonesia sub-platform. Sorin has operated against Riadi's account for years, entrusted by Riadi to act responsibly, but Sorin has caused him untold damage. The entire chain of this money was a lie, a fraud, and a scam. This means that 15 trillion USD of falsely created money has been issued, traded, and laundered through the banking system, making huge profits. To whose benefit? How much profit was made, and where is it now? We want it back, with taxes levied, and in good hands helping the world. The Fed's accompanying instructions for the transfer of these funds, all personally authorized by Mr. Benjamin Bernanke, included instructions to utilize part euro funds already lodged with HSBC for the Pure Heart account. This was the delay in processing this 50 billion euro portion of the transfers, perhaps fees for the boys, which caused Mr. Bernanke to fly to the UK and personally walk through the execution of this transfer. This may possibly have been with the knowledge of Lord Stephen Green, who was the chairman of the HSBC at the time. Euro funds later appeared, perhaps as payoffs, in the accounts of fraudsters Sandip Goyal and Wilfredo Sorin for assisting in executing this fraud. When challenged about Sorin's role and imminent risk of arrest for his many scams, Marlon McCall openly stated that Wilfredo Sorin is a Federal Reserve Bank of New York protected agent and will not be arrested as he is being protected by Homeland Security and the Fed as a managed agent. That explains a lot. Anyone issuing fraudulent US dollars is typically tracked down anywhere on the planet by the US. Yet Sorin is always the Teflon man. On one hand, Sorin appears on Fed warning sites, including many Asian media warnings of his many crimes and fee scams. But on the other hand, the Fed deals and colludes with him. What shameful duplicity. The deal offered by Pure Heart to the UK to try to get these funds repatriated was as follows. 1. 1/3 was to go to the US Treasury. 2. 1/3 was to go to Pure Heart. To whom and for what purpose? 3. 1/3 was to go to the UK for services rendered in providing shelter for these funds for 2 years. There has been a systematic failure by collective authorities to address the issue. Since obstruction cover-ups continue, we must do the following immediately. Seize back the first 1/3 5 trillion USD, right now for US economic needs. Give nothing to Pure Heart, and instead, the second 5 trillion USD comes back to the US. Use the last third to stabilize the UK and the EU. Identify the vast profits which will have now been made from these funds, recover it and pay the private and global settlements. Set up a congressional task force and go after this money. This week, the walking wounded lame duck Royal Bank of Scotland, which assisted in fronting this fraud, is repaying its government bailout loan of £163 billion, think 250 billion USD. The bank only made a declared trading profit of £1.2 billion. This is Madoff-style accounting. So clearly, vast amounts are hidden, off-balance sheet for one set of books and on-balance sheet for another. The US Fed, US Treasury, UK Treasury, and Bank of England need to set up an urgent recovery team to find this money. Her Majesty's government holds the key to unlocking and exposing this vast fraud. McCall was crying. The Brits had frozen him out. What a turnaround. For almost a century, the Fed scammers raided the planet, and now the Brits have pulled their pants down for 15 trillion USD. This 15 trillion USD would easily have made over 50 trillion USD in interbank trading. Look at the taxes missed on those profits, approximately 20 trillion USD. The RBS board is liable for criminal prosecution, as are many others. The Bank of Indonesia has serious questions to answer here as well. JP Morgan helped initiate this Fed scam, and HSBC helped launder it. We call for a joint congressional UK Lords and Treasury task force to go after it all. In one swoop, we stabilize the EU, UK, and US economies. Once released, The global settlement money will go towards funding infrastructure projects, creating jobs, increasing revenues, and reducing crime, thus reducing despair, creating hope, and providing opportunity. Wilfredo Sorin and Sandip Goyal are flagged on many sites. Why do they have HSBC and Credit Suisse bank accounts? Who cleared them? To our leaders, do the jobs you were elected to do. Get this money back now. Stop talking. Start acting. Identify and prosecute the rogues involved.